Should Christian parents indoctrinate their children with Christianity?
The short answer is no. No one should be indoctrinated to anything. But I wouldn't accept such a short answer, so why should you? You shouldn't. So we know what we are discussing. Let's see what the meaning of indoctrination is. The process of teaching a person to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. Now that's done, let's see what Eric has to say.
I'm Eric Hovind, president of creationtoday.org. Mark asks, would you advocate sharing all faiths and atheist views equally and let the child decide on their own what makes the most sense? Hey, thanks so much for your question, Mark.
This is a good question to ask ourselves as parents. We have a duty to prepare our children to be responsible, empathetical adults who can navigate the wider world making informed decisions about a variety of things they will come across. Teaching them to evaluate evidence from a young age can help with this challenge.
This is a fairly common question from skeptics, and I've heard atheists and agnostics tell me that their parents did this, describing it as being open-minded and giving the child freedom.
My religious parents also did this. I am an atheist whilst my sister is a Christian, and because we were taught that irrespective of our decision we would be supported, it gave us the confidence to freely research and evaluate the evidence. We were also comfortable enough to ask for help when we came across questions we couldn't answer.
So, I do hear where you're coming from. However, this idea is not based on knowledge. It's based on the lack of knowledge.
Eric, the title of this video is Should Christians Indoctrinate Children? This implies the people you are talking to do have knowledge. My mother is a Methodist, my father was a Catholic. They had the knowledge and resources to answer any questions I had. I just didn't find them adequate.
Now, before I address the question directly, think about it this way. What if we applied that same logic to other areas of life in raising children? What would a 5-year-old eat if the parent presented healthy food and junk food as equally valid foods? Nothing but junk food and candy, right?
Well, this depends if you are teaching your children to think about their options or not. There are methods to teach children to think critically and weigh the options open to them. This is just as important as teaching them to read, write, and count.
Back in the day of black and white television, there were cigarette commercials where doctors told you which brand of cigarettes they smoked. Why? Because they thought it was good. Now doctors know smoking causes cancer and a host of other health problems, so they don't tell people to smoke, but insist pretty dogmatically, don't smoke cigarettes. Their new knowledge changed how they teach. They don't present smoking and non-smoking as equally valid.
Doctors do warn us about the harmful effects of smoking. However, they supply us with the facts and allow us to decide if we want to smoke or not. They prepare us with the information and allow us to make an informed decision, something you don't want children to be able to do.
Now, to speak directly to the question, if your parents were agnostics, that means they claim they don't know. They don't know if God exists, or they call themselves atheists and they're not sure that there is such a thing as truth. It would make sense for them to tell you to figure it out for yourself. After all, you can't teach your kids something you don't know.
What someone believes is irrelevant. No matter whether you're agnostic or atheist, you can teach this is what Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Jews, Buddhists, Pastafarians, etc. believe, or this is how they celebrate their faiths, and so on. You don't have to believe in something to teach it, and if you aren't fully versed on a religion, you could visit a church, temple, mosque, etc. and ask the religious leaders themselves for help. Or even YouTube. People like yourself have channels for the sole purpose of educating people about what you personally believe.
But as a Christian, I know who God is. I know that Jesus is the way, Jesus is the truth, and Jesus is the life, and no one comes to the Father but by Jesus. To not teach my kids this truth would be worse than letting them discover for themselves how unhealthy cigarettes are at the end of their life.
And here lies the problem. I would confidently say you were indoctrinated by your parents to believe the Bible in its entirety. Had your parents been of a different faith, that is the one that you would say is the truth. It is unlikely you have earnestly researched other religions, or lack of, because you were already taught your specific religion was the right one.
Now, while a good parent will not shield their children from other ideas as if those ideas don't exist, they will teach them the truth that they know. A passage often quoted for this is from Proverbs chapter 22, verse number 6, and it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." So, as a Christian, I would not hide the truth from my children because I love them. As an apologist, I do present all ideas equally, but not as if they're all equally true.
I am glad you acknowledge that a good parent will expose their children to other points of view. However, I am concerned that you think you should assert X is true in this way. The passage you quoted, when in context of the chapter, supports the message of teaching children how to think critically of claims being made, and this will help them in adulthood. To teach your children to think critically, you shouldn't teach them that the claims are true or false, but rather how to evaluate the evidence supporting the claim.
I guide my children to truth, just as I tell them to eat vegetables and don't do drugs. Ultimately, all children are going to grow up and decide for themselves what they're going to believe, think, feel, and do. But as a loving parent, I'm going to do my best to guide my children to truth, and that means guiding them to Jesus. Mark, thanks so much for asking that question.
Which is another problem. You are telling them what to believe, forcing it upon them until they just accept it due to repetition. This acceptance often happens long before adulthood and at a point where their critical thinking skills haven't fully developed yet. In this scenario, you aren't guiding them, you are driving them to your predetermined conclusion. Eric goes on to promote his .org. If you want those details or to check if I've missed anything he said, the link to the original video is in the description. Do you think I'm wrong about anything I said? Do you think I missed something? Either way, leave your thoughts in the comment section below.